All right, we move on to the transfer list. The guys that have entered the portal, Elias Rudolph being one of them, who was a top 25 edge, top 13 player in the state of Ohio, according to 247 Sports. You just hit me with the guy that is the probable most important of the transfers.
Zaquan Patterson.
Zaquan Patterson. Okay. We actually talked about him earlier on an Ole Miss show as being a possible target there.
And there you have it. So also Nye Carr, the receiver from Georgia, and Joshua Horton, the defensive tackle from Georgia. So 4 guys from Miami already into the portal as who was it? Mr. HD, a bunch of scrubs hitting the portal. Adapt or die, obviously. But I think all those guys who have hit the portal for Miami, they have their reasons. Elias Rudolph was probably top of the brain, conservatively 8th or 9th at defensive end, and had definitely been recruited over with like Hayden Lowe and other. I mean, when you get a 5-star, it's reasonable that you've been recruited over. But excuse me, I was drinking sparkling water earlier, and the sparkling was sparkling. But yeah, so Elias Rudolph, he's talented. Even though he missed most of his senior year for a shoulder injury at Cincinnati Taft. But probably, a little ways away from seeing playing time, even rotationally. So, okay, that's a guy, we'll see you. Joshua Horton was a bigger player, but he was like a 3-star developmental kind of type. I had high hopes for him. I thought that he would be the developmental guy who hit. Save that. We're going to come back to that. Save that. I thought Joshua Horton was going to hit, but the developmental 3-star who hit was Ahmad Moten and not Joshua Horton. And then he's conservatively 7th or 8th at defensive tackle, considering who's there, who's been brought in, been recruited over a couple of times with transfer portal guys, and Miami would rather move Mesidor and or Bain inside than play him. Cool. Writing on the wall. Normally, this is a guy, well, not normally. Previously, this is a guy who you would have seen in year 4 or year 5 make an impact kind of a thing. But now heading into year 3, the timeline is moved up. So he's seeking greener pastures. Nye Carr, even with all of the snaps available at wide receiver, didn't really make an impact. And I was talking on the phone with a friend of mine earlier. Where were the snaps going to come? Right? You're not taking snaps away from JoJo Trader, who is in line to be the number 1 receiver, unless he's winded for a play, maybe 2. So even conservatively, well, even being very giving of snaps there. So we're talking 4 a game from JoJo, and that's not even counting targets. That's just snaps on the field. Okay, cool. You're not taking snaps, a single snap away from the slot, because Malachi Tony seems like he's that guy. And if it's not him, then you're going to double slot it up with him and Ray Joseph. You're not taking snaps there. You might take a couple away from Ray Joseph, but we're going to say 0 there. You're not taking any away from CJ Daniels, who's big and athletic and was doing super duper one-handed, jumping over people, freaky deaky kind of stuff the day he got back to practice. You're not taking any snaps from Joshua Moore, who's 6'4", right? Unless you figure out, well, again, maybe if he's winded, right? So you're looking at a handful of snaps a game, and you didn't really make an impact. And I haven't even mentioned Dalen Upshaw, the other true freshman wide receiver who's out there hooping. Like, we tried it, but it didn't work out. So there was that. Before I go forward, throwing up the X for Falconer TRX with a super sticker. Appreciate that. And Zaquan Patterson. Everybody's All-American. Huge recruiting win out of Chaminade. Mr. HD, Zaquan had off-field problems, problem issues is what he says. That's debatable and like hearsay at best. Saquon himself said Miami treated him right, loves everybody in the program, respects the coaches, all that stuff. Just not the spot for him. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes you need to get away from home. Sometimes you need a fresh start elsewhere, and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, Ole Miss is a spot where he could land, or pretty much anywhere in America, because Zaquan Patterson can play. You've heard me on here saying I want the law firm of Patterson and Poyser starting at safety. I'm not saying that this is a guy who cannot play and everything. I think that some of the off-field issues are maybe a little touch overblown, for one. And for two, yeah, look, I want you to be here, but only if you want to be here. And it is challenging seeing a player of that caliber and potential elect to leave the roster, but I ain't trying to keep anybody. So I'll help you as much as I can get to a place where you will have the experience that you desire and be as successful as you possibly can. But that's the one really Zaquan Patterson that's potentially like immediately impactful for this roster. He was held out all spring after going through a minor procedure and everything. So it's not like he, we saw him recently, but, still, yeah. So those are the four as of right now who are in the portal. Shopping list wise, I think especially with Patterson going, you're looking for a safety who can contribute. Now, whether you have Dylan Day step into the starting role, whether it's Markeith Williams stepping into the starting role next to Zachariah Poyser, or somebody from the transfer portal. One of the first questions, Anthony Manzano, I saw you were in here first and had the first high before this one. Seems like we're targeting two safeties from Florida, Smith and Thornton, and Terrence Lowe from Auburn. Yeah, that's Gregory Smith from Florida. That is also, where is this other one on this list that I looked up previously? Man, I don't see it. Anyways, I haven't looked at those guys to really have a ranking of who I would prefer or who I think fits best. That's a really great question. I've kind of just been looking at the landscape for right now and not like diving into any of that. So it is a great question, one for which I do not have an answer, and I'm not going to sit here and lie to y'all or make something up. But yeah, we are going after those names and others. So we will see who ends up coming in. I think, yeah, you need, we'll take a linebacker if they can really be impactful. Definitely need like a safety. Definitely need a wide receiver. Those kind of things. So that would be like the top of the shopping list in the portal. But that's where we currently stand in portal land.